Good evening, I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas. The Great American Auto Scene, brought to you by Valley Head Service, Irwindale Speedway, Irwindale Drag Strip, and Tucker Tire. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob. How you doing tonight? It is a beautiful sunny day here in Southern California. If you want to cook eggs on the sidewalk, it's the right temperature. We're here at the GAAS Studios. And with us tonight, we just turned on the lights. With us tonight, as always, the inimitable and gorgeous blonde Bruce Parker.
Hey!
Oh!
I am ready for my close-up.
You're ready for your close-up. And sitting back here with the giggles, it is Bruce. No, Bruce is over there. It's Anna Marco. And Anna's here. She's here. We've let her join us again tonight. She remembered what night to come to the studio this week, which is that is an amazing feat for her.
She looks just like Anna Octane.
She does.
She does, doesn't she?
She looks just like her.
No, she does.
It's her twin.
Oh, okay.
Oh, look at that, with the sunglasses on.
Yeah.
The lights are bright in here in the studio.
Well.
And the tears.
This is of course, moderately a solemn time as well.
Solemn, yeah.
Not really.
Well, we talk about that. We're going to talk about the...
No, we're celebrating now. I was told I
celebrating.
need to celebrate.
You celebrate with sunglasses on?
Celebrate.
I don't want them to see the runny mascara.
Oh, I see. I was going for that or bloodshot. I don't know.
And I'm not wearing any mascara, so it'll be fine.
Well, thank God you're wearing pants. That would have been a very short show.
Boy, would it ever. Well, that's not the only thing that may be short, but that's another story altogether. And in studio with us tonight from the Talking About Cars podcast and KNX 1070 radio, it's Randy Cardoon.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
The very professional Randy Cardoon.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to make it so I can have this show on my Facebook page as well. And nothing's coming through, but yours is coming through fine.
Mine is working just great. And for those of you that would like to call in and give us some words of wisdom later on when we start talking about some of the people we're going to try and remember tonight. Tony Wood, the custom car builder, and along with Bill Carter. Wild Bill Carter, a custom painter that didn't get the public recognition, but he did get the recognition from the pros, the people that wanted their race cars painted, custom cars painted. It was one of those best-kept secrets because they didn't want you to know who was doing that fantastic paint job because you'd be in competition with them. But cars like the War Eagle and Tommy Ivo's cars, there were a lot of cars that Bill Carter painted. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We're going to be talking about T-Buckets a little bit later on as well. As a matter of fact, the first caller, hopefully he looked at his watch and he's calling in. But we're going to be talking about T-Buckets, and we're going to show you some of the best T-Buckets around and get you involved in T-Buckets, which, when you think about it, that was one of the first generally popular hot rod. Norm Gabrowski and Tommy Ivo built some great T-Buckets. They got a lot of notoriety, including on the cover of, Life magazine?
On the cover of the Rolling Stones.
Oh,
wait, that's something else.
On the cover of Life magazine.
Yes, and Bob's Big Boy here in beautiful downtown Toluca Lake.
Wasn't a T-Bucket in a TV show?
Yeah, there was a couple of them.
Dobie Gillis?
Well, no, 77 Sunset
okay.
Strip. Dobie Gillis may have had a T-Bucket in it, too. They had a 26T that Donna Roscoe restored that was in the Ozzie and Harriet show as Ricky and David's car.
And, of course, Dobie Gillis's friend.
Oh,
local assembly person.
Oh.
Sheila Cool.
Oh. Really?
She was played in Dobie Gillis.
Oh, wow.
You didn't know that?
No.
I did not know
Also,
that.
Grandpa Munster.
Grandpa Munster.
No, she was not Grandpa Munster.
But that wasn't
that was Al Lewis.
She didn't play Grandpa Munster.
No, Grandpa Munster had a bucket.
No,
When he was
he had a coffin.
He had a coffin.
But that was a bucket.
No, that was a coffin. It was a coffin on a frame.
But it's technically a bucket.
What you're saying is he kicked the bucket and went into
Ended up in a coffin.
I don't want to take a bath in the same place you take a bath. I'll tell you that much. T-Bucket and a... Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, by the way, Bob, you were questioning the time and whether our caller's on. He's looking for a better connection.
He's looking for a better connection? Okay.
That's right. That'll be coming in just a moment.
No, that's really our show.
That's the end of it. Thank you very much for tuning in. No, it's going to be a great night. We're going to be talking, like I said, about some great people, and we're going to be talking about T-Buckets. And once we get John to finally get through, he had a bad phone connection, he'll be calling in. We'll get to his website as well, and that's also previously posted on my page. It's Bob Beck. Please follow and friend Bob Beck on Facebook, and GAAS, Great American Auto Scene, GAAS. Also, Randy Cardoon, and Talking About Cars on Facebook. So friend us all, friend us both. This way you can follow what we're doing, our shenanigans, our antics. We were just at the Road Kings Car Show this past week. The week before that, we were at the LAPD and LA Fire Department show, and on purpose, they didn't arrest us or anything. So it was kind of neat. And even Bruce was at the Road King show this Saturday. It's one of the biggest shows in Burbank. Over 700 cars.
That was a cooking show.
Oh, yeah, literally.
Can I say something?
Go right ahead.
I harass firemen.
Okay.
Curveball
check it out.
just inside.
So I'm cruising down, I think it was Ventura Boulevard, and there's this big fire truck.
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to harass the guy. So I roll down the window and I go, "Hey!" And they look down and they nod their head. I said, "I'm on fire. Put me out." And I took off.
Oh, man.
And you were wearing a low-cut dress. And the guy goes,
That sounds illegal.
It was so bad. But it was cool because they were like, "What?"
yeah. Well, you know, when I was a kid, and you know what my sense of humor is, it hasn't changed much. It's gotten worse, if anything. But there was a fire at the house alongside ours. And a buddy of mine from the apartment building we lived in walked over there, and we're looking and we're talking to the fireman. And I turned to him as one of the firemen got alongside of us and said, "Quick, go across the street and get the marshmallows." And we got this
Hi-yo.
dirty look for the fireman, and it's like, okay.
You know what? A lot of firemen are hot rodders.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
they got plenty
are.
of time to build cars. And you're seeing video that Bruce took from the Road Kings car show.
This
Just
is
saw
nice.
the James Garner car from his show.
Who owns that?
I don't know. I didn't go.
That was cool.
I saw the car from the show, but I didn't get a chance to go up
Which
and
one?
see it.
Wow, look
the
at
James
that.
Garner Thunderbird.
Oh, it
or
was,
not
yeah,
Thunderbird.
it was
Firebird.
Firebird.
Yeah.
Firebird, that
From that he was the detective. What was the detective show?
Rockford Files.
Rockford Files.
yeah.
Didn't he stunt? Wasn't he a stunt driver?
No, but he could drive. He drove competition.
Yeah.
And he was an excellent driver. He did his own stunts, I believe, owns own driving stunts. He did have a double and a stuntman who looked remarkably like him. And I met them at Saugus Speedway one night when we were out there for a Saturday night race. But James Garner was a super nice guy. He also, I believe, won the Baja 1000 with driving an Oldsmobile. And it was up at the 200 Mile an Hour Club museum up in Buellton. The car was up there, and it's it's not restored. It's as it was when it raced. It's kind of cool. Wow.
This is a great show, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's on the grass. It was somewhat cool. Now, the 55 Chevy you just saw pass by, and the Lincoln alongside, the 55 Chevy came from Dothan, Alabama for the show. And Bruce Barker's Lincoln was right behind it, or right alongside it. And then Randy's Pontiac Safari and my Plymouth Coupe were there. Randy and I were the MCs for the Road King show, and it was a really cool show. And like I said, 700 plus cars, and every type of car you can imagine was there. You can see a couple of Hondas. That's a Pontiac wagon that actually won.
52. And not only did it win something,
Beautiful.
it's for sale.
And your
Yeah.
friend is the one that owned that. I didn't realize that.
So anybody want that car?
Yeah.
Touch base. I know a guy who's selling it.
Man, I've been looking lately for a 57 Thunderbird, and I'm going to have to go for a junker because that's what I can afford. That's what my wife says I can afford.
Yeah.
Wait,
Is that a four-wheel drive Corvette?
I don't mean to interrupt, but I got to show you this Corvette.
Indeed, that is a four-wheel drive Corvette.
Four-wheel drive Corvette.
Yes.
Yeah.
My God.
That is for the off-road enthusiast that has everything.
Yeah.
And I asked him what the chassis was on it. He said it's specially made for that Corvette.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So he didn't just take something from somewhere like
I was
most of us
thinking
do.
that's what he did, put a blazer under it or something.
Yeah.
But, with the Corvette dimensions, I don't know how you get away with that, really, without a lot of changing things, trimming it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Very unique Corvette. Not one that the National Corvette Restorers Society would probably be happy about.
Think not?
No, don't think so. I mean, they weren't happy with my car, let alone something this radical.
But that's what's cool about car customizing. You make that car uniquely yours, just like you.
You do. Yes, and that's what was celebrated at this car show is hot rodding in its purest sense. No two cars were alike. Everyone's personality was shown in the way they did the cars. Now this one, it says Merc on it. It's not a Merc. It's a Packard.
It says Merc Eater.
And you can see on the billboard or board next to it, it shows as the wise cameraman zoomed in.
Yeah.
See, that's what it was. It was an actual four-door Packard.
It fooled me. You walk up to that thing, you go, "Nice Merc, dude."
And it was on a show, a build show, a number of years
with
ago,
Ian
where they
Roussel.
put it together.
With Ian Roussel. Yeah, the guy that owns that, his name is Craig.
Of course, part of it is, the grill they stuffed in there.
Well, that's the front end of a Merc. They grafted into it.
Yeah.
And it was amazing when you saw the guy hand form the steel to mold the front part of a Mercury into the Packard. And it flows so smoothly. And they, like you said, took a 4-door and made it a 2-door.
Yeah, boy, that's above my pay grade.
Oh, it's way above my skill level. I can do that with plastic models, and that's about it with a lot of bottle
This car won an
contract.
award as well,
Yes.
59 El Camino.
Yeah, we had 2 that won, actually, and that was one of them. But there were some beautiful cars. I'm glad I wasn't a judge.
Yeah, because that would have been tough. And, that upper level had just, there were so many good cars.
Yeah, Johnny Carson Park, there's an upper and a lower level, and unfortunately, for me anyway,
Here we go.
There's that Chrysler 300. There's that Dothan, Alabama 55 Chevrolet. He drove it out. He got the long distance award. I think it was like 2,500 miles to come out to the show on purpose. And he did it. But there's a whole upper level, and you see all the trees behind it? That is natural growth that the city of Burbank decided to plant. And they took away the stream, or the stream is still there, it's just covered by this natural growth. So you cannot see the upper level at the Johnny Carson Park. But this is the lower level area, and you see a lot of great cars there. The upper level had just as many. Plus, one of the cars we saw, and you and I did a live broadcast on that, was a Falcon Ranchero 1965 with a matching trailer that was a barbecue.
That was amazing.
You heard him correctly. It was a 65 Falcon with basically the interior taken out and the front and back sewn together, if you will, grafted together. And they had a barbecue in the back, and they were going to use it.
Yeah, and they did. They offered
I've got
us
a barbecue in the back, and I'm going to use it.
And I know how. And they offered us some hot dogs, but we weren't able to make it back there for that. And they were members of SoCal Falcon Club. Then there was a bunch of fuel altereds there, and these were regular race-ready fuel altereds that still compete today. They run a heads-up category called fuel altered, and they run 6-second heads-up.
Creative.
Yes. Beautiful Merc. That was Fast Eddie from the Road Kings. We looked at this thing and were amazed at the suspension work on this thing, all bagged.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
I think Randy could be the cameraman.
There we go. That's the
Safari.
That's the Talking About Cars mobile.
Yeah, and right alongside it is the gas machine.
Yep.
That's my Plymouth Coupe.
That's it.
I think Randy could be a cameraman.
I think so.
No, that's not me.
No, that was Bruce.
That's Bruce.
Bruce could be a
I
cameraman.
could be a cameraman, too.
Or Bruce is a cameraman.
Look, there's the logo.
us. What a great show. How many cars showed up?
About 700.
Wow.
I mean, it was
700?
great. 700 cars. We had about 400 in the lower section and another 300 in the upper section that we walked through. We didn't get to see everything, and we didn't have the time. We were on stage doing our normal antics, kind of like this, live. Shenanigans, yes. We were that. And Bruce got to walk around. He got to see everything. He got all his steps in, as a matter of fact. His petameter just told him that he had done 10 to 15,000 steps within the first few minutes.
Yeah, these are some of the cars from the second level.
Okay.
Nice. A lot of Mustangs.
So this was the Great Road Kings Car Show. That was another award winner, that 51 Ford.
And I think that Sunliner was, too.
Yeah, it was. And that was one of the original members of the L.A. Roadster Show, or Roadster Club. His son's driving it now. It was Dwayne Kofed's car. He and his wife used to parade that thing everywhere. And it's an all-original, completely stock 56 Ford convertible.
Pretty.
All right. Well, let's go from custom cars and a car show to John Moore and the T-Buckets. How you doing, John?
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's the T-Bucket world?
The T-Bucket world is jumping these days. I'm just out in the Northeast recording a podcast episode about the Ventures Lost in Space T-Bucket, the Fred Steele Roadster.
Okay.
So there's some pretty interesting news in reference to that. And then I'm off to sunny Phoenix, or actually Prescott, Arizona, this weekend for the T-Bucket Nationals.
You guys,
there'll be a lot going on there.
Really? T-Bucket? I'm going to have to get out to that. So you've got a big show that's nothing but T-Buckets.
That's right. Every year, the National T-Bucket Alliance puts on a T-Bucket Nationals, and they try to move the location around. This year, it's in Arizona, so next year they'll probably shift back to east of the Mississippi, and that way they try to cover as many people as possible. But the cool thing about the association is that they have probably close to a dozen regional T-Bucket meetups throughout the year. So it doesn't make any difference where you're located. Chances are you'll be able to go to one of the National T-Bucket Alliance shows or meetups within, a couple of hours drive of where you are.
Well, explain to now. I think I know what a T-Bucket is, but explain to our audience what a T-Bucket is, because there's a certain parameter for a T-Bucket.
Sure, Bob. Basically, a T-Bucket is a hot rod roadster that's based on a Model T runabout body that could be anywhere from 1915 to 1927. Most of them are the typical fiberglass, what are called 23T bodies. But, you've got other variations. And, the T-Bucket world is not that exclusive. So if somebody's got a, 1920 Dodge Roadster or, a Studebaker, they're included as well.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some of those like that, and it always struck me strange because I'm looking at a car and I know it's not a Ford, and I always associate T-Buckets with Fords, but I guess the bodies are pretty much the same in concept.
Yeah, the basic shape of those bodies back then were all pretty much the same. So to the average person, what would be a 1920 Ford Model T, or even a Chevrolet runabout, or a Dodge, or a Studebaker runabout, they're all going to look the same. But probably 90% of them today are built using inexpensive fiberglass bodies.
And you have a whole series of DVDs to help people get involved in T's and build a custom T-Bucket.
Yeah, we do a number of things. I've got a website that's tbucketplans.com, and on there we've got, I think there's one set of chassis plans that are free, and then we've got, I think, about 5 other different plans for building T-Buckets. And some of them are nostalgic builds, what would be 60s era or 70s era. And then we've got one book that pretty much covers everything you need to know about building a T-Bucket. And then also at our sister website, which is streetrodplans.com, we've got what are called the Street Rod 101 DVDs. And that's a library of 5 DVD sets that cover everything from building a chassis to doing all kinds of modifications with fiberglass bodies, even all the way to doing your own upholstery on a street rod.
Wow.
But I do this as a part-time labor of love, and my latest endeavor is a podcast, which is at tbucketpodcast.com, and you can actually, if somebody looks on the Apple Podcasts, they can find Hooked on T-Bucket podcast. But we've got something like 8 episodes released already.
Wow.
And I've got about 40 more that are in the can. And
Only
so
40 more.
rushing to get them out.
Okay, well, that'll keep you busy for a while. And
yeah.
Do you have a T-Bucket yourself?
I do. I've got one that I'm building, and it's one that's kind of an oddball, but with what would be the early Jaguar XKE independent rear suspension.
Okay.
And a torsion bar front end. Ooh. For a little bit neater look.
Yeah.
And then I've got a 23T fiberglass body that I've sectioned by 3 inches and pinched in the cowl. Some people talk about T-buckets being small.
Yeah, and you
I guess they can't be small enough for me, but it makes it a more distinctive look. There actually was an LA Roadsters member named Don Oakes, who was probably the first person to section a T body like that. And what Don did basically has become known as the 1915 T fiberglass body now.
Oh, okay.
So it's got more of the high look, the low door line. It's a little sleeker look for things.
All right. So the websites to follow you on or to check out some of the things we've talked about are where again?
Well, T-Bucket Plans would be for the plans, and we've got a whole bunch of blog posts on there about historic T-Buckets. And then if you want to listen to some of the legendary builders, go to tbucketpodcast.com.
Okay.
You know, we got interviews with Tommy Ivo, Don Garlitz, and a whole lot more. So, you know, it's fun to be able to get out and talk to these guys that are pioneers in the T-Bucket world.
All right. Well, Randy, have you ever had the opportunity to ride in a T-Bucket?
I never have, but it looks kind of fun. Yeah. My only concern is taking those turns and making sure the seatbelt works.
Seatbelt?
Silly me. What was I thinking?
Well, who said you were?
Well, now T-buckets per se, though, are they always... They don't have a top on them at all. Because I've seen
canvas or a cloth top sometimes.
Because I've seen cars like that, and sometimes they have a top on it, or they're built like they used to have the old dairy truck and that kind of thing where it was kind of lowered and
the C-cab type.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the T-bucket would more likely have a canvas top like Tommy Ivo's did. Although Tommy didn't run it quite often because he raced it and it would catch too much wind.
But wasn't historically T-buckets from Model Ts that had been wrecked and they just chopped the top off them? Made little roadsters out of them?
No, they started out with roadster bodies.
What about the tall Ts that they chop?
Well, those were the chopped top. That wasn't a T-bucket.
Okay.
Right, John?
There have been all kinds of variations, and you know the way that Ivo and Norm Grabowski, their T bodies were not the runabouts, but they got the Phaeton touring cars and just used the front half of those. Yeah,
I remember talking to Tommy. He went out in the desert and found the body that he used.
Exactly.
And he he kind of tried to one up Norm. They were friends. Norm was an actor, stuntman, and Tommy was an actor, so they knew each other. And Norm came out with his T before Tommy did.
Yeah, he did. And Tommy basically got his dimensions from Norm, going to his house and laying down and pulling out his
sneaking out there
tape measure.
Yeah, I think the story I heard is Norm came out one day and there was Tommy doing measurements. He didn't know he was there. Those two guys together. We had them judge the T-bucket class at the Road King, one of the first Road King shows at the LA Equestrian Center, and it was a comedy team walking throughout the show. Those two guys were nuts together.
Absolutely. And the other historic T Roadster is Iski's.
Yes, and Ed's car's on display at the NHRA Museum now.
Yeah, Ed built his in the 40s, and it's still a dramatic-looking Roadster today.
Yeah, well, I was talking to the guys that filmed the history or the story of Ed Iskandarian, and they took the car out of the museum for a drive, and they had it up at El Mirage, and Iski was driving the car, and the pedal kept going down, they kept going faster and faster, and the guy that was filming it said they got up to about 85, 90 miles an hour, and it still has the original tires on it when Ed built the car in the 40s.
Boy, oh boy.
I mean, we don't drive a car with more than 6 or 7 years on the tires, and here's tires from the 40s. Ed's 90-something years old, and he's driving 90 miles an hour, just going, yeah, okay, it's a nice day. How are you doing? I'm fine.
Man.
I think for Ed, age is just a state of mind, and he's not going to be influenced by the number of years.
No, he's not influenced by anything. He just keeps
going.
He's got some circulation issues with his hands, so he wears a glove on one hand now. I call him Michael Jackson, and he just kind of kids about that. Yeah. All right, hey John, thank you for calling in. I hate to cut you off, but we got a lot to do tonight. We got a little bit of a late start tonight, but we got to move on. Thank you very much for calling in. T-Bucket is your websites again?
Oh, tbucketplans.com and tbucketpodcast.com.
All right, check them out.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Not a problem, John.
Okay.
Thanks for calling in. We'll talk to you later. We've got more coming up. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right. Thank you. We got a bunch of people online we got to go to, and one of the first ones, and I know Skeeter's been patiently waiting. Please keep waiting. We got a lot of people that have called in, Skeeter, and we're going to be getting to you in just a little bit. But the first one I want to go to would be Steve Stanford, and we're going to start talking about Wild Bill Carter, the painter. How you doing there, Steve?
Wild Bill.
Wild Bill. We've told some stories about it. You and I have talked, and we were chatting last night about it, and from the time I was a teenager, I yearned to get a Bill Carter paint job, and finally did, because Bill's shop was just up the street, and as a youngster, I'd walk over there and peer in the window at some of the custom cars he did, and he was one of the first guys that pioneered the enamel fadeaway paint jobs, and was kind of doing some production thing.
Yeah, they did that. I mean, they kind of had to, because with the custom car market at the time that he was aiming that to, there was your bucks up guys, which is like maybe a handful, and then there was everybody else. So Carter, in his clever way, he came up with a way so that these people can get a really cool paint job for a really reasonable price. And I mean, at a like this, these weren't going to win like your Concours d'Elegance, but for the street, for Van Nuys Boulevard, and for the local shows, it was perfect. And like I say, the budget was there, and the quality was too. So
he did some great stuff. And like I said, he was across the street from Valley College in Van Nuys, California. It was a whole shop of or a whole area of car shops, and he was right out in front. And he had the little glass front office area that you could peer into, and you could see him working at times, and then he'd always park a car out in front. And it was just amazing to see, things I read about in the little pages of CarCraft and in Hot Rod Magazine. The cars were always showing up, but it was one of those secrets. If you and I saw him at car shows where he advertised his fadeaway paint jobs, but the guys that got the really good high-tech paint jobs from Bill didn't tell anyone, because they didn't want anyone to know that he was doing the paint for them. And they were just great paint jobs. And he was also a racer, wasn't he, Steve?
Oh, yeah, Bob. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, he told me, I think the only race car he ever drove was a dragster, of some sort. Yeah, I mean, obviously, funny cars fall into the same category. But, yeah, early on, he wasn't in the door slammers and nothing. He had to be a rail, or he wasn't interested.
Well, I remember he had, and I don't know if it was his or a dragster he was painting, but it was a bright yellow front-engine dragster, and he was in the parking lot at Valley College. And if I remember correctly, he was firing it up and driving it.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, see, the days you're talking about, that was slightly before I moved to California and hooked up with Bill, because I moved out here in 1980.
Okay, yeah, this was late 1960s.
Right.
I was 16 years old when I first saw his stuff. And
was he at Valley College before or after Larry?
That had been after.
After Larry.
So that was mid to late 1960s that Bill was across the street from Valley College, and Valley College wasn't as built up as it is today, so it was easy to get into the parking lot. And I remember seeing this. It was the first dragster I'd seen in person, and this big yellow thing in the parking lot with a huge motor. I'm assuming a Hemi. And he was firing it up. And here's a picture on screen right now with Bill in the background, kind of looking like Wild Bill. I mean, he's looking like the guy from
Grizzly Adams.
Yeah. And he was a friend of his too. And if you look at the picture, that's Don Perdome standing next to him, and Bill painted the Perdome Army car. You never see Don or anyone like that giving Bill the credit for the designs and the paint jobs, but he's the guy that did them.
Well, I mean, the neat thing about the funny cars, you can just look at the billboard on the back, and so that's where everybody, the chassis guy, the paint guy, the lettering guy, that's the way I'll put our credits in that. So, you know, the racers, they're not there to spotlight their suppliers. They're the one racing, and whatever it takes. Plus, racers being racers, I mean, if one guy's got a speed secret, man, the next thing you know, they all want to go to the same source for the same equipment in the hopes of shaving another couple of tenths off the ET.
Yep. And we're showing on screen now the front of Bill's shop and this beautiful custom Cadillac that was in front.
Yeah.
Is that across from Valley College?
That's right across from Valley College.
I think that's
was that the 1960 Cadillac you're talking about?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Dale Gould's car, yeah.
Yeah, that thing was gorgeous. What a showpiece for people driving down the street to see. It was just amazing.
At the time, I mean, that thing was the radical body modifications. Yet the cool thing about it was you still knew what it was. Yeah. It wasn't modified beyond all recognition. You know?
But you wonder where that car is today, because it's something I haven't seen. And there's a shot of Bill with Tommy Ivo. Now, he painted Tommy Ivo's cars too, didn't he? Which were relatively simple cars at the time.
Oh yeah, in fact, it's. I think one of the last things we did for Ivo, Bill and I, was that 4-engine car that he campaigned, and I got the letter and striped that one, with the Rizlone sponsorship and all that. And I guess the original paint is still on it. I'm like, this is cool. A little bit of history that was saved.
Yeah, that's the car he sold to one of our club members, and then bought it back. And changed the guy put the Buick body on it, and Tommy sold it to him as a dragster. It came back as a Buick Riviera.
Was that Tom McCurry you're talking about?
I'm sorry?
Was that Tom McCurry you're talking about?
Yes, Tom McCurry.
Yeah, I knew him. He was a great guy.
Yeah, he was. And he took the 4-engine dragster, put a Buick Riviera-style station wagon body on it.
Yeah, called the Wagon Master.
Right, and painted it yellow, and he got more recognition for it. Then Ivo bought it back, and then changed it and did the candy paint job that we see on screen right now.
Wow.
Yeah, Ivo did that because it was something about he was coming near the end of his career, and he kind of wanted to go out with the bang, and everybody remembered that 4-engine car, and even with the body on it and stuff, it was still obviously the same car and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Ivo wanted to kind of go out with a big final hurrah with that, and that's why he brought it to Billy and he had him paint it all up and do it too, put the Ivo colors on it.
Yep, and the show machine that it always was. Hey, Steve, I thank you for calling in. We got a couple of other guys who want to talk about Billy as well. We thank you for calling in, and always love your artwork. Do you have a website people can take a look at your stuff on?
Yeah, just Steve Stanford Designs on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, sounds great. Thank you very much, Steve.
You talk to you later.
Take care now. Now, on the line with us, too, is Gotcha, pinstriper and painter himself, who, Van Nuys Boulevard is where we met, and you started plying your craft back then. How you doing there, John?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great.
Is that Gotcha Gomes?
That's John Gomes Gotcha. Yes.
That's smiled backwards to you guys.
And John just helped me out. He repainted the flames on my Plymouth, so it's fully flamed again.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I only did that because I thought you had a Mopar engine in it.
Now he wants to take the paint back.
Yeah, he wants to take the paint back. We'll explain that to some people later on in life.
Bob, you didn't explain to him about your valve covers. You only said to Larry Alfrea you got the valve covers from Papa Alfrea, but why don't you tell him the story about what your valve covers look like? Because you even fooled me.
Well, I had taken some Mickey Thompson valve covers. I've got a Chevy in my Plymouth, and I took the Mickey Thompson covers and I cut the tops off them in the center, in between the fins. I got a set of Mopar Performance valve covers and cut the center of those out and fitted it into the middle of the Mickey Thompson cover, so it looked like it was full fins and it looked just like a Mopar valve cover. But I can't weld aluminum. I took them over to Larry Alfrea, Valley Head Service, our sponsor, and I said, Larry, this is what I want to do, but I had the Mickey Thompson piece still in the middle. He says, I don't understand. So I pushed the Mickey Thompson piece out, put the Mopar piece in. I said, and this is going to go on my Chevy V8. And he goes, oh, you son of a... and said, bring it over here.
Yeah.
And he welded them up. We sandblasted them. I cleaned them. Before I was married, I cleaned them in my dishwasher. Before I painted them, and then I wrinkle finished them in black so they would match the factory Mopar Performance valve covers, and I got the air cleaner as well for Mopar. Then I put it on my Plymouth, and when people take a first glance at my Plymouth, they go, all right, a Mopar and a Mopar, and then some smart aleck could go, wait a minute, distributor's in the wrong spot.
No, your distributor's in the right place for a small block Mopar.
Well, kind
That's
of,
what
yes.
fooled me.
Yes.
I had a 340-69 Dart, the old orange Sunshine that I street raced, the second car to ever have nitrous oxide in the valley.
But you ran the purge line to your helmet, didn't you?
Thank you. Hey-o.
Yeah, well, you certainly fooled me, but you know, I want to say something about Bill.
Please.
Bill was a inspiration to me. My very first paint job was, I don't know if you recall my car, was a 37 Chevy. It was K.S. Pittman's old double B gas supercharged car.
Yep.
And it was called Wildland. And Nick at Sparklets in North Hollywood supplied Walt Prey and myself and Carter and the rest of the boys with all of our metal flakes. Mm-hmm. And I think Nick took a liking to him. He called me up one day and he says, hey, look, I got this new stuff, man. You need to put it on and you need to go to the Winter National Car Show. And it was off a Jewel metal flake.
Oh, wow.
And I had never painted a car before. Mm-hmm. And it was also in urethane, which was one of the very first cars. This was 1973.
Wow.
And, we went in there into the Winter National Car Show and took best paint, best use of colors. And I felt really sorry for Bill because I hadn't met him yet. I was with Tex Cox of the Wicked and Wild AMCs. And as they said, and for best paint, because Bill had a bunch of cars in the car show, he started walking up. He was standing with Danny and Walt Prey, and who was his in-house striper. And he started walking up towards the stage, and they said my name, and I didn't. I know they said it, but I didn't hear it. I'm standing there with my arms crossed, standing in the aisle across another aisle from him, and Tex Cox slaps me on the back, and he goes, man, you won. And I'm like, what? Bill didn't even hear him. He got all the way up to the steps, and the guy stopped and says, no, it wasn't you, Bill.
Jeez.
Wow. So after the awards, Bill came over and said, wow, you know, nice car, blah, 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 and was kind of taken aback when it was one of the very few cars that I did paint. Usually I just do the pen striping and the lettering, and a lot of that I'm an offshoot of Walt Prey. I like doing the in the still of the night and all that window lettering, and I think you've seen Reed Stoltz's Pontiac, which is just a flat black primer, but it's ghost flamed out. Okay. So my inspiration, if it wouldn't have been for him, I would have never been able to achieve what I have achieved at this point. Walt Prey, the same thing, and unfortunately we lost, I think Walt passed away in 2013 on Christmas Eve. Okay. But I wanted to bring up Tony Wood, too, because that was a shock to me.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Tony in just a few minutes.
You notified me. What's the deal on Mr. Wood?
We're hearing a lot of stories, and I don't know the facts at this point, so we'll leave it to some of the people that do know. But unfortunately, we lost Tony on his way back from, I believe, Portland.
Tony, I only knew through Facebook and my working with Universal Studios. Okay. And you talk about, I mean, the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. And I'm taken aback by it.
All right. So, well, John, I do appreciate you calling in. We got to give Tony some time, and we got other people on the line right now. Do appreciate you calling in. I don't mean to cut you off, but we still want to cover Tony properly, and we got to give him some time.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right,
you
John.
guys have a good show today.
Thanks. Thank you for calling in.
Okay, buddy.
All right, on the line with us next is going to be Skeeter Rader. It's Skeeter from the Coachman Car Club and Santa Claus at times. Skeeter, how you doing out there? We're going to be talking about Tony Wood, and you were a friend of his as well.
Yes, can you hear me, Bob?
I can hear you just fine, guy.
Very good. First of all, I just want to say hello to you and Randy and Anna, and also Bruce. It's been a long time since we've actually seen each other. I hope to see you in a couple of months at a big car show in Ventura.
Yes.
Oxnard. But talking about Tony, this was a tragic loss. Because just what John said, and John actually did some work on the root beer float. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that I've never, ever heard a bad word about. Everybody loved this guy. And he was... I've been thinking about this for a week. How could you describe Tony Wood? Because he had the sweetest job that you could want. He was the traveling companion to King George. He went all over the world, made friends in every continent on this globe. Mm-hmm. Got to meet everybody in the car community, in the car industry. And we got to be friends because we both had custom T-Birds. And fortunately, he managed to finish that car. He held on to it for, I believe he had it for 30 years before he finished it and started to tour it this year.
Yeah, Randy and I talked to him at the Grand National Roadster where he debuted it. And we did about a 45-minute interview with him there. And, I'd always seen Tony, and we talked to Tony. Hi, Tony, how you doing? And so forth. But that was the first time we actually got a chance, that Randy and I got a chance to talk with Tony and really, I guess, get to know him.
Yeah. No, Tony, I had gotten to know him a little bit when I had a chance before George Barris passed away. I got a chance to interview George for my podcast and got a chance to meet him. And, he has been echoed here. He's just such a nice guy. I mean, you talk to him, he seems very genuine. And of course, he was thrilled that the Thunderbird that he put together and finally got finished basically was being noticed. Because, you have a car that long, you really want to put your efforts into it. And the fact that he was able to finish it and it was winning awards, I mean, it was very nice to see good things happen to nice people.
Yeah, without a doubt. And he, like you say, Randy, he just was the nicest guy, the very, very approachable. The same thing with Doreen, just sweet people. And Cindy and I were fortunate enough that we saw him and Doreen at the Portland Roadster show this year. And Cindy was smart enough, she videoed Tony showing me the Moody Blue from one end to the other inside, how the paint was put on, the whole thing. And he was just like a kid in a candy store. He was so proud of the end result. And you have to give a lot of that credit to Radio Bob as well for the paint. The upholstery was impeccable. But
George Tantardini painted that car too. I think he did the roof or something with the metal flake.
Yes, he did. You're correct, Anna.
I think Tony was a hot rod and custom car social influencer, because he was like a social influencer. He knew everybody, and he brought everybody together. He introduced people to people, and just combined everybody into one big custom car and hot rod family. And it was such a shock. I mean, we're just going to miss him so much. And he was funny. Oh, my God, was he funny.
Funny
and that New York accent.
And that's what I was going to say. I've been thinking for a week, how could you size him up? And for most of us in the car community, when you saw Tony, it was like he was the Fonz.
Yeah.
He was the cool guy. You wanted to be his friend. You wanted to hang with him. That was the way that I saw him. And And one of the things that he did for me just before George passed away, at Collector Car in Simi Valley, we had George come to the show, but not as George Barris, King of Customs, but George Barris hanging out in Levi's in a T-shirt, and we had music by the Crown City Bombers, and George and Doreen were dancing. Here he is, 89 years old, rock and roll. It was cool, and the reason that happened, and we were able to get that on film, was because Tony got him to come out and just hang out like the rest of the car guys. It was one of the most memorable moments of my life, and that's the kind of thing that Tony made happen, just memories all the time. Like you said, introducing you to people that you would never meet, and finding out that everybody in the car community, or most of the people that we know in the car community, are just folks, and they're just people, and we all have something in common.
You know, it was nice to see when the Thunderbird came out, the recognition that Tony was getting, because now this recognition he was getting was because of him, not because of his association necessarily with George, but Tony was now a standalone, and he was on his own merit.
Tony was a great caregiver for George. He was his right-hand man at shows. He's also very close to Barry Weiss.
Yeah. And Barry,
I don't know.
Barry's recovering now.
Barry is aware of the fact. Barry's in recuperation.
Yeah, after that motorcycle accident.
So I haven't been able to find out if he's aware, but all I know is that it was very nice on Monday morning to see that Doreen posted on Facebook, and that we will, in fact, have a memorial for him. That makes me feel pretty good. Yeah,
and I believe it's going to be at the NHRA Motorsports Museum in Pomona.
A very apropos place.
Yeah, I'll find out more. I'm going to be talking to Larry Fisher tomorrow, and we'll see if we can get some more information about it, and I will post that on the GAAS and my Facebook page and so forth, and let everyone know when it is and how we can organize it. But I believe that's what I've heard at this point. It'll be at the NHRA Motorsports Museum in Pomona. No date has been given yet, but we'll find out.
I think Justin and Doreen are going to continue to show the car, and only Tony would take two cars, mash them together, and make them look cool.
Well, yeah, and we got the story of that car when he got it, and he said he had seen the car from the original builder, who never finished it, but drove it around. And Tony said he searched for, 20 years, Randy?
Something along those lines, yeah. It had been such a long time before he got everything together, and finally, got the car he wanted and was able to do the right thing with it. And that's just, finish it up the way he did, especially with the way the paint went on and all that, because the paint job really was a recent development in the car.
Well, we talked to Tony at the Grand Nationals, and he was so proud of the fact, and he told us the story about him finding the car after searching for 20 years, and he brought it over to Barris' shop, and Barris told him, you'll never get that thing running. And sitting on a milk crate, he drove it by the shop and said, I got it running. And, and George finally believed in him as far as that, believed that he was going to get that thing running, and it was just amazing to finally see it with bright paint, because he'd driven around in matte finish for a decade or so.
Forever. Yeah. Even when he put the just before he turned blue, he had that flat black finish and then had it all pinstriped, and it looked pretty good, but nothing like the end result when I saw it in Portland. It was just, that's your dream when you're building the car. And I can remember the first time that, because my T-Bird, and I had that thing for 16 years, and I was on Van Nuys Boulevard, and I was asking Reed Stoltz and some of the other guys that were putting on, or getting that thing started again, and I said, man, there's this T-Bird wagon. I got to find out who owns that thing. And then we hooked up, and we were both building custom T-Birds. It became a real friendship, and he became like family to me.
Yeah, and up until we talked about him taking care of George Barris, he was the right-hand guy for George Barris. He was he was associated the most strongly with George Barris of anybody, because wherever George went, Tony was there.
Yeah, Tony would watch him and make sure he was okay and get on time and sign autographs, and they were two peas in a pod. He was like a father. George was like a father to Tony.
And Tony was about twice as tall as George.
That's funny. Yeah.
We've got a picture we're going to show towards the end here.
That's a humor that Tony Wood had. Okay, so I'm going to tell a secret that we weren't going to ever tell.
Okay.
I have a signed program from the 2019 Portland Roadster Show. And it was a big joke. I said, will you sign this for me? And he said, yeah. And so he signed it, and he handed it back to Cindy, and she started laughing. And I looked at it, and he signed it George Barris.
Yeah.
We just crack it up, and so I have a picture of that, and that was his sense of humor. He was always joking around.
Yeah, and always smiling. When we talked to him at the Grand Nationals, I mean, you couldn't take the enthusiasm out of the man. He was just so excited about that car being previewed there. And he went into detail about the paint and the people that helped him. And it wasn't a matter of, I'm taking credit for this car. It's a matter of, these are the people that helped me get to the
a whole team came together toward the end to get that car finished for Grand National. I think it was Richie Valles and Steve Carpenter and Mike Garner and Radio Bob and George Tantardini and, of course, Doreen. And look at it, it's beautiful. And now his son Justin, I think, is going to be the caretaker of the car. So it's a wonderful rolling tribute to Tony.
Well, it just goes to show you, when you talk about somebody being loved, now that George was gone, and all of those people that were close to him that could make it happen said, "Come on, Tony, let's finish your car and make it something to be looked at." And he was, like you say, he was extremely, extremely proud of the car.
Yeah.
And well, he should be.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear, I hadn't heard that Justin was going to continue the tour of the car.
I hope he does.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely one of a kind.
Well, this car has to be seen. It can't be tucked away.
It's beautiful.
This is so unique. There is nothing else like it. I mean, your root beer was cool. There's no question about that. But the wagon?
Not like that.
No, this thing is just totally... No one has ever done anything like it. No one has reversed doors. No one's put a Vista Cruiser roof on a Thunderbird.
And think about that era of a Thunderbird. You're talking 67, 68, 69. I mean, those cars you just didn't see a lot of, especially make a station wagon out of it.
Right.
Well, that's what happens when you hang out with George Barris.
Well, they knew the story of the car, and there was a guy that had built the car, and Tony told us his name, and for the life of me, I can't remember even my name, let alone the guy who built the car. But Tony said he had looked for that car for 20 years. He had seen the car running when it was first built, and it wasn't finished at that point. And then he searched for the car. He wanted that car. He told Barris he wanted the car. He searched for it for 20 years and found it out in the desert. Then tried to search and found the owner before he could buy it. And then 10 years in the making. He got the thing running. It wasn't running. It was, like he said, a rat-infested car when he finally got it. And, I mean, this was a labor of love for that car.
Definite tenacity, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. But it paid off. And unfortunately, he only was able to enjoy the fruits of his labors and dream for a short time. I mean, the car was finished in January, and here we are in June, 6 months later.
Well, you know, Bob, what they say, but he saw his dream come to fruition, and he did get to ride the crest of that wave, even if it was for a short time, and he was certainly happy about it. And the other thing is that I'm really sad that our friend is gone, but he had been having a wonderful time at London, Ontario all weekend, and it was the last of the Fleetwood cruise, so he made that with all of his friends from Barris Customs East, and he got on that plane, and somewhere that was decided that was going to be his last plane ride. So he got to see his dream come true, and all of us that knew him, he definitely was an inspiration, and he's something to say. You know, I want to be like Tony. I want to be that guy that everybody loves, and I want to be that guy that is at all the car shows and everybody glad hands you and says, "Hey, I know that guy. He's Tony Wood," and he was well loved and by everybody.
All right. Hey, Skeeter, thank you for calling in. Thanks for the fine words about Tony. And it's time for us, unfortunately, to move on. We'll keep you posted about the memorial and when that happens, or the celebration of life, I'm hoping they call it, hopefully within the next month or so.
Well, you guys take care.
All right.
Thank you so much for asking me to come on the show from Las Vegas.
And thanks for hanging in there. You are on hold for the longest in history.
You will get the bill, Bob.
Yeah, I will. All right, thanks, Skeeter. Say hi to Cinda for us.
See you in July, guys.
Definitely. We'll see you in July. Randy and I are going to be with you at the Collector Car Show Appreciation Show at Vista Ford in Oxnard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Love you all. Take care.
You too, Skeeter. All right, guys. It's a wrap-up for us, just about. We got a couple of minutes. Anna, anything new and exciting from you? I didn't think so. Okay.
Yeah, no. I'm surprised I made it through this show without totally crying. I'm having a hard time, but
your glasses are rusting.
Yeah, that's why they're on, because I've got wet mascara behind my lenses.
Randy, what's up for you next show-wise?
Boy, well, my mascara is fine.
Yes, I'm glad.
Sure
believe
we're
me.
straight on that.
Yeah.
Of course, Thursday, coming up a brand new Talking About Cars podcast. You can get it at radio.com. iTunes, as long as it's still around, and because I heard that and I went, well, there's my audience. Also KNX1070.com. This week we have Mike Martell and Wild Bill Shrewsbury. We got them at the Nitro Revival out at Irwindale, and we talked about the Hemi Under Glass.
Yep.
The other one that didn't have a certain former late night talk show.
The one that didn't play Turtle and Roll Over.
Yeah, the one that did not have a piece of plastic that you have.
That I have in the trunk of my car, yes.
Yeah, and of course we're going to talk about the Nitro Revival too. They honored a bunch of people from San Gabriel Raceway, which was around.
And the original Irwindale.
Yeah, and the original Irwindale. Yeah. So Steve Gibbs will be, you'll hear Steve honoring and interviewing some of those people who he brought up to the area there, and they talked a little bit about their experiences. So that's kind of cool. Right now, if you tune on Talking About Cars, we have from the Peterson Museum, they have that Hollywood Dream Machines display that's going on, and they had a bunch of Hollywood people talking about Hollywood cars and some interesting trivia.
Some Sid Mead and Gene Winfield cars, and they just got the James Hetfield collection. 10 cars from James Hetfield.
Cool.
Beautiful cars.
All right, I'm headed down to Bowling Green, Kentucky in the morning for the NHRA Holly National Hot Rod Reunion. So if you're in the Kentucky area in Bowling Green, come out to the races. I'll be up in the tower serenading you, I guess you could say, as I head out there first thing in the morning. Oh, dark 30. I got to be at the airport.
Oh, dark 30?
Oh, dark 30.
Right now?
Almost.
Hurry.
Let me look at the clock. Yes.
That's almost like
you're late.
Sleeping in for me.
Yeah. Well, I won't. I'll be as you're driving. I'll be driving too. So
really?
Yeah, I got to get there with the first flight out.
He'll probably pass me.
I might. It depends on whether or not Peg's driving.
Oh
yeah.
Is that your car, Bruce?
That's my car.
Bruce's
That's
car.
beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Mm-hmm.
Now, to show you how much of an enthusiast my wife is, a car enthusiast, she got her first ET slip from the California Highway Patrol this last weekend.
Great.
Oh my!
I don't think that's what they call it.
How much?
No.
How fast?
Enough that we're worried.
She's a hot rod doll for sure.
Really?
Yay, Peg! Go Peg!
And that was in her SUV. She wasn't even driving our Corvette. She was driving an SUV and got pulled over.
Because it was just like
you can't
burgundy.
take the hot rod
bright
out of the
red.
girl, but you
bright
can
red.
take the girl
It's
out of the
bright
hot
red.
rod. It doesn't matter.
All right. We're gonna sign off for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to GAAS. Remember, follow and
look at
sign up
that.
for GAAS, Great American Auto Scene, Bob Beck on Facebook, Randy Cardoon, and Talking About Cars. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching tonight.